Welcome to the Creative Brew, helping you keep your creative juices brewing. We're giving out chunks of insight, motivation, and practicality for your creative journey. My next partner is Elevate Coffee Trading, and if you appreciate specialty coffee, enjoy outdoor adventure, and love helping elevate the lives of children around the world, then you're going to love Elevate Coffee Trading. Their mission is to extract hope through love, coffee, and adventures. There's free shipping in the United States, and every bag of coffee helps sponsor health and education for children in coffee-producing countries and in areas of need in the United States. You can use promo code Elevate21 on your next order, and you can follow their journey on social media at Elevate Coffee Trading. Or you can visit online at elevatecoffeetrading.com, and let's start extracting hope together. And this episode is brought to you by Boba Coffee, smuggling good vibes. Boba roasts their coffee beans each week and only offers the freshest coffee. They have espressos, lattes, cappuccinos, pour over, or drip coffee. You can try their cold brew coffee, nitro cold brew, or bulletproof coffee, and boba milk teas. They also have a wide assortment of delicious food. I would suggest you try the avocado toast, mimosas, wine, or beer. On the weekends, you can check out some great music like the Soto Six and food like Eliza the Shelf and others over the weekend, every Friday and Saturday, beginning at 6 p.m. You can check out everything they got going on Facebook and Instagram at Baba Coffee.
All right.
All right, welcome to this Out of Bounds series with the Creative Brew. So I'm still up in arms on if I should keep it under the Creative Brew or make a whole new podcast altogether. That's a lot of work. If you're interested in helping me to support that venture, you can go to www.buymeacoffee.com/the Creative Brew. And for the price of a cup of coffee, you can help support this episode as well as all the Creative Brew episodes, all the Out of Bounds episodes. So let me know, should I keep this separate? And this could be something for listeners. Should I keep this series separate, or should I just keep it under the Creative Brew? So just let me know. But I wanted to sort of go more into some just various topics depending on who I bring on. But today we got Ian with the Truth Quarry, someone that I became a really good friend with. He's in the design field, wrestling space, loves comics, sci-fi stuff, crazy, conspiracy stuff. So it's one of those where like it's a cool little companion to have, just someone that you can spit ideas with, or just someone you have something in common with. So it's always cool finding those people. But today it's gonna be a mix of different things. With Ian, he has a Truth Quarry, so sort of sharing maybe some project related stuff, or what he cares to share, just upcoming projects. A little bit mix of design, comics, sci-fi. We'll talk a little bit about the Captain America movie without giving any spoilers. I saw it, and I'm not gonna give any spoilers, but we'll discuss a little bit about it. And yeah, and that I think that's about it. Obviously, this conversation can go anywhere, so this is why it's called Out of Bounds. So Ian, without further ado, if people want, maybe reintroduce everyone to you, and yeah, we'll get started.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks a lot for having me. That kind of intro made me blush, but it's awesome to have a companion in the design and wrestling space that we've been talking about. So seeing what you're putting out, and I gotta say, you're like a machine. There's always something coming out, and so it's nice to have just like if you're drilling partner, you got somebody who you can work with, who can set the pace and push it, and get both, sharpen the senses. My name is Ian McEwen. I run the Truth Quarry, brand consultancy focused on brand strategy, naming, and visual identity, more so gravitating towards the strategy space. The ideal situation is helping businesses improve their strength, performance, and technique using the power of the brand. And whether it's market differentiation, ideal customer personas, name generation, development, security, which is a growing concern as time goes on, and visual identity, just something that looks different and identifies you compared to the competitors, helping your target audience understand why they should choose you over anybody else. Outside of that, I've been wrestling basically forever. A little bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, coach wrestling in high school, coach mixed martial arts and Jiu-Jitsu at an affiliate franchise program, and that's really about it. Um, so, I said you were like a machine with the way you're cranking content out, new projects and stuff you're working on. Whether it's the Tyner Middle School or Middle High Academy, which is awesome. The end on the crossbar of the T coupled with the horny. Like if you just cut that piece out, that's a really cool abstract kind of ram head too. The cups by Q, you get Captain America and Broly in there. And then you got your congrats on the coaching positions for both
Oh,
the men's and
appreciate
the
it.
women's team at Palomar. That's awesome. Man. You don't stop. So when you're wrestling, like was that your style? Where you just like to go, 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 just push until
Um,
they break kind of
yeah,
guy?
it's sort of weird because I had a gas tank. It was just I think going back wrestling, I think it was more of a confidence thing.
Yeah.
Like I knew I had a gas tank, but being afraid to sort of push it to that pace. Now when I did, when I felt great, I was really hard to deal with, but it just sometimes it took me a period to sort of get going. So a lot of times I would lose a lot of close matches to good guys because
Mm,
I wouldn't start till like the second or third period. And then by that time, I didn't broke them, but it's too late.
yeah.
So I think, even now, I do find myself, honestly, I mean, because I'm still sort of, competing, I'll compete in different events.
So
Um,
cool.
but even now, I think now I'm not too concerned with like the like wins or losses. So it's sort of weird because now I sort of just go.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think just back in my younger years, I'd be so afraid of losing, that I really wouldn't push it to what I could. Now when we was in practice, I would sit there and just when I was relaxed, I would just go. But
Yeah.
it's sort of always a weird dynamic, whenever you're in actual competitions. And I think with me, I think I focus too much on like wins and losses. But yeah, I think my pace, I'm really high. I think naturally I'm like an energetic person. It's sort of weird because like I'm calm, but I'm energetic at the same time. So it's not like when I'm just all over the place. It's just like one of those just like I I think with a lot of the things that I do is just a bombardment like really for me like just a bombardment of just ideals. If it's something like that's on my mind, I'm like, okay, I've got to put this down on paper or something,
Yeah.
or I'll be up all night thinking about it. So
Yep.
yeah, so I think for me it's just one of those where I definitely with wrestling it's sort of helped me sort of to be really consistent with a lot of the content and just things that I make. Um,
Yeah.
I think sports definitely helped me out as a creator. Um, Even trying to run a business and creating brands and things like that. Wrestling definitely gave me the drive and the discipline to stay consistent, even when I may not necessarily see anything as of yet at the moment. I do know, like, you learn how to stay consistent. I think that's what happens with a lot of creators is they start out strong. Even people, maybe they're starting a podcast or anything like that. They just maybe they start out strong and then just go flat. Or maybe they feel like uninspired or something like that.
Yep.
I think wrestling just showed me how to just get through it, and keep going even when I may not necessarily feel motivated or feel like I don't have any new ideals. You figure out things you can work on, or just doing something different. So yeah, I think it's yeah, for me, I think that's sort of helped me to be really consistent. I've heard a lot of people tell me that, like, they'll just the people that I know out here, and they'll be like, I see you doing this podcast, and you're running Langford Design, and just hard, and doing everything else, and it's just like where do you find the energy at?
Oh,
And I tell people like I would love to build a clone,
yeah.
so
Right.
so I could offload some things, but no, it's just one
Soon
of those.
enough, man.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just a natural like just I want to be one of those to where like you know what, matter of fact, I've always been a student of like Stan Lee. and a lot of those creators, Walt Disney to some aspect, but I've really been always been a huge fan of Stan Lee and just his, even like Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, like a lot of those old creators and their ways of just constantly like coming up with ideals. That was, I think for me, that amazed me. And that was something
Yeah,
like I always wanted to do. I wanted to find ways of creating ideals and make a living off of it. Like if I knew I could
yeah,
do that, that's what I want to do because I love creating ideals. I love creating new characters and concepts and worlds or even just like new designs or identities for people. I always sort of saw myself as some kind of storyteller,
yeah.
and I'm always sort of communicating ideals in various aspects. But yeah, I think that's what sort of drives me, all the time.
No, you brought up some good points. I like the analogy of when people would gas out in a match compared to whether it's content creators, business owners, such as solopreneurs, who can, and I'm guilty of this too, where I'll go hard and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm not sleeping enough, exhausted, or life gets in the way, and I got to get back on that track. But that's a really good analogy. Actually, when I was coaching, had an athlete who same thing, tons of potential, was a really good wrestler, but had a tendency every once in a while to gas out. So the guy I was coaching with kept an empty gas tank in the wrestling room, like one of the plastic red ones, and would hold it up in the
Yeah.
middle of the room just to put the pressure on. It was funny, man. But the like yeah, you're nonstop, but it's really cool seeing everything you're putting out and how much you're giving back. Whether it be through the volunteer stuff, just the design studio, what you're giving in. Um, the Kirby, the Kirby reference is interesting. Have you ever heard the story where apparently his style was he would just sit down and go, like just draw straight up, and that was it. That was a finished piece, one and done. No rough sketches, no nothing. He just sat down and just drew it out. So whether it was it was like New Gods for DC or old school Thor and Asgard stuff, like he would just sit down and just bang it out, which is nuts. When you think of like what actually goes on into a comic, the
Oh yeah.
detail, perspective, the storytelling, it's just when I heard that, I was blown away. Um, Actually, I tried using the Kirby Crackle that that he would use with the like the black circles that would kind
Oh,
of merge
I,
together. Like it's so
I was
fun.
always amazed by that. I kept looking. I was like, "How's he doing this?"
They started dropping it into movies every now and then. Now they did little Easter eggs. They're kind of throwing it back to the old guys who were kicking everything off. Um, you mentioned making a clone. I just saw today there's an article out that NVIDIA has this AI capability now to basically break down genetic material and rewrite it based on some stupid big catalog of genetic information from every animal and organism under the sun. So maybe sooner than you think we could
Oh
get a copy of
yeah,
you out there.
yeah.
Be a
That
hell of a mirror match.
that'd be wild. What if you had another clone, sort of like just roaming around, like maybe like one of those companies sort of secretly like created a clone of you, and he's just running around. You got a clone of Ian just roaming around causing chaos.
Yeah, I mean, if he is, then that's my evil clone. So I'm not too chaotic unless it's trying to manage a million things at once. But I'm sure you can do some stuff around the house and let me focus on building the business and helping out the kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something. Um, so you mentioned you saw Captain America 4. Now, reviews out there are pretty suspect. I've seen some stills of what they did with the leader, which I think is an interesting take. We know Brett Holt's in there. We know Adam Adamantium's in the play, so we know where that's going. Um, what were your takeaways without spoiling too much? Because I was
um.
interested, and when I saw the reviews, I was like, you know what? Wait, the first I think Wolverine was the first movie I saw in the theaters since Spider-Man: Homecoming. And I just, after two kids and whatever, I've just made peace with letting it come out on Disney Plus and watch it in the comfort of my home. But so, what was your takeaways?
Yeah. I mean, because I initially, I saw the reviews, and sometimes you just never know. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna ignore those reviews and just sort of watch it and sort of see for myself, like how, what I think this, how I think this movie is overall. I mean, I think I like it. I mean, honestly, I mean, me personally, like I base anything off of Captain America Winter Soldier. Like that's
Yeah,
my bar.
that's a good one, man. That's
So
tough to beat.
anything that's around that, I'm like, okay, this is a good movie. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, I think they did a really good job. Obviously, there's some things in there like, and like I said, I'm not gonna throw out like any spoilers for people that haven't watched it, but like even like the Red Hulk and stuff like that, like those are things where like I wish they would have kept that secret until they
Yeah,
released the movie. But I think I think more of a that does help with marketing, but
yeah,
I do wish they would have sort of held that close to the chest and then release
yeah,
it out. Um, I'm glad they reintroduced like the things like the Celestial. So if people hadn't watched the Eternals, at least
yeah,
giving them a chance to go back and watch Eternals, which I think people had bad reviews about the Eternals. I actually liked it. Now I wish they would have introduced some of those characters in the other movies and at least put them like in Endgame. But those are obviously that you always make mistakes, but with this movie, I mean, I really feel like this is a really good jumping off point for what they're trying to do with the other movies going forward. I think this is one like you need to make sure you watch this because it's going to start to spread out to all
yeah,
the other movies.
yeah. That's so you brought up Captain America, Winter Soldier. That was aside from like the Wolverine origin comic when it came out in 2003, which I thought was a killer take on executing an origin story that was 50 years in the making. Um, the Winter Soldier one, where they end up bringing Bucky back, I was like, oh man, like Ed Brubaker, that writing team was just like, I never saw it coming. I never expected they'd bring, a character like that back. And seeing that, it was such a cool take on that premise.
Yeah.
They killed it in the movie too. It was super well done.
Yeah,
But that
I
storyline,
remember
period.
watching that movie and and I when they did Captain America Winter Soldier, like I already knew what was gonna
Yeah,
happen, and that's coming from the comic book side. But you got a lot of people that hadn't read the comics, so they don't
yeah,
know. So when that came out in the movies, and they saw it was Bucky, I heard people like what, and I was laughing like I knew that was gonna come out, but like just
yeah,
the I guess the shock on people's faces. It was like
yeah,
it's funny.
yeah. It was one of those books I picked up by chance. I think the cover's got like, Captain America handcuffed, and we got shot up on the steps. And, you don't know what's going on. It just happened to be that issue. Um, and I had that also with that online a few years ago when they brought out No for the first
Mhm.
time. So I got like that first appearance edition, locked away. And which actually brings up one of the recent books I read was the Venom line 21. So it was after King and Black.
Oh, okay.
And it's a trippy read. A little bit, confusing on it, time travel and alternate dimensions and this and that, but pretty cool twist on it. And then it runs into uh, the new line. Now I don't know who the new Venom is. Supposedly they've got it ironed out like 4 different people. I think Robbie Robertson's one of them, which I was surprised about.
Oh, okay.
Um, but it's supposed to be pretty good. And then what's it? The Amazon Kindle and Comixology subscription, like they stopped having them included at like issue 22 or something. So you get invested, 20 issues in, and you're like, you gotta either wait till they release it or whatever. But that's a pretty good read. Gotta check it out.
Yeah, I like that. I got the King and Black miniseries, and that was pretty cool. That was the first time like I saw Null, and I was like, oh
Yeah,
my god, this dude's a menace. I was like, I was like this dude, and
yeah, they
it's
would.
sort of, and I was mad because I watched Venom 3, and they brought
Okay.
out Null. I'm like, oh, they're doing this guy a disservice. I'm like, this is
There's something I don't know what it is, man. They just can't seem to hit it. Like it's whether it's that Raven, they're just missing the mark.
Yeah, I
I
was
think
like, I don't know if it's
this,
just people that's never read a comic book in their lives, or at least like checked out any of the source material. And I was like, hey, we like this character, let's put him in. I'm like, Noel is like the end. Like this dude has destroyed Celestials. Like you don't just have him just locked up.
yeah, yeah, you can't. There's certain stuff like as tempting as it is, and you need that like Hail Mary toss to kick some stuff up. Like obviously it hasn't worked, and he pulled up every other member of the Rogue Gallery to try to kick up some interest. Like just but the MCU's played it one game. You know, the Eternals thing. Personally, I think that was one of the few earlier seeds of setting up, the Mutant Saga. Because when you go back into the Kirby line of comics, it's that the Eternals created the humans, the deviants, and the Eternals, and that mutants are actually a branch of the deviant line down the road. So it's like you're setting that up way in advance, which is
Yeah,
is cool to see. But of course, just like the real geeks are going to be like, oh, I'm connecting all these dots already.
yeah, yeah. You better get it right because you got some people that hey, they'll say like, oh, this is this isn't connecting right. But yeah, I was like, yeah, Noel is like someone like you would put as like a major villain in a
Yeah,
like in a movie. That's like someone you set up for. I mean, I know they've been hitting around like the symbiotes, and I think now with even with the in the Venom 3 movie, well, anyone that hadn't seen it, obviously he hopped between dimensions between
yeah,
so possibly having that, symbiote there now and the I guess the sacred timeline of the,
yeah.
MCU would introduce characters like that down the road. But yeah, you don't. I mean, watching that, I'm like, wow, you're just doing Null a disservice. I'm like, that's someone you put up at like a Thanos level.
Yeah, yeah. Like you're 7 movies in before he gets to
Yeah,
really
that's
get much screen time. That's that's wild, man. Have you seen the Thunderbolts preview trailer?
yeah. I think that's gonna be really good. I saw Black Widow, and
Okay.
I was like, and that was another one. Like they didn't hype it up too much, but I saw it.
Yeah.
I was on a plane. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna check this out. That was
Yeah.
a really a great movie. And that I think that helped even going to the Thunderbolts. Like a couple of these characters, and
Yeah.
which is I mean they're fun. I mean I love some of those characters on Black Widow, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's gonna be a great movie. That's finally introducing Sentry, which is gonna
Hell
be
yeah.
huge. And
The fact that they showed the Void so early on,
yeah.
I
See,
was
that's
surprised.
what's gonna introduce. I mean, that's where I think, hey, that's where you can bring in Noel when you start to
Yeah.
introduce like the void and all that stuff. Yeah, so it's
Yeah. I'm curious. They showed like the really short teaser, whenever when they're all in that room and Bob comes out in like the scrubs or pajamas looking thing, kind of confused and whatever. I wonder if that's the Void that, and he's going to start off as just the sneaky bad guy from the jump, and then later on get you know turned around or whatever. But it's
yeah,
another really cool. It's an interesting like brand exercise actually, where they fabricated this character that was like this long lost concept from what was it, like the 40s or something when he first came around in like the early 2000s. And it's like they uncovered this trove of character development. They brought it back out. Like I thought that was a really cool, like marketing take on how to breathe some new life into at that point pretty stagnant line of stuff going on.
oh yeah. It's I mean, it's sort of amazing. I mean, like I know what Marvel, it's just like they're pretty much. I mean, they're like a publishing and really just like a publishing and IP company, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's just a treasure trove of characters that they could pull from. Like even when they did Guardians of the Galaxy and like they pulled out, they made
yeah,
like thing Groot and Rocket Raccoon relevant. I'm like, I remember them. I'm
yeah,
like, they're like D-list characters. I'm like, wow. I was like, y'all actually made this really cool.
yeah. When I first saw the Rocket Raccoon thing, I was like, how is that? Like back in the comic books, I'm like, I had zero interest in reading this book. And when it came into the movie, I'm like, all right, it's I think it might have done better in the movie because you can get that much more personality. Um, actually, you can appreciate this as a collector of sorts of comics and whatnot. So I recently picked up a full set of the Marvel 1992 Masterpiece cards. dude, that's one of those sets I've always wanted as a kid that I just never had. You get a couple packs here and there, and over time they just fall apart, or you lose them, or siblings take them, or whatnot. But I splurged the other day or the other week, and there's a new spot by me that opened up. It's Lost Toys or something, and he's got toys, comics, all old vintage stuff, and he had a set. I'm like, you know what? Like I'm doing it. So I started digging back to these nostalgic areas, collecting from when I was a kid, and that's part of I think one of the things that really gets me about it is that you can kind of tap back into your childhood when it was simpler times. You can kind of go down that collector's checklist of getting those things you never were able to get, and so I started digging into the old school XN figure lines, like 91, 1990, and I didn't realize that apparently Marvel built the Toy Biz company solely to have ownership over the IP for the action figures, because what was coming out from the Secret Wars stuff in the early 80s was so bad that they said, you know what, we're going to put the kibosh on that. We're going to build our own company, and we're going to have full control from manufacturing IP, all of it. I had no idea the Toy Biz was actually a Marvel, affiliate or brand in the house of brands.
Yeah, no clue. I used to get those all the time in the early '90s. I'd have those little the toys, and wow, I had no clue. Wow.
Yeah, no, it was pretty cool. I didn't know that it was a cool like I've been geeking out on like business strategy. It was a really cool premise. Like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, from just a business perspective. Um, Actually, and on that, I'm reading this book, Playing to Win. Uh, it's basically about business strategy, where you're going to play, how you're going to win, and all the cascading decision-making processes that go into every little thing you do. And they actually broke down how Clorox owned this huge chunk of market in terms of, household garbage bags, plastic bags, all that kind of stuff, and how, they had saran wrap and all these kind of things. And then Procter and Gamble had this proprietary technology for the Force Flex bags and for the press and stick wrap seal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're going back and forth trying to make it work. And they came down to the decision that we're never going to beat Clorox head to head. Even if we bring our own brands in, we're not going to get that much of the market there. Even have all this stuff taken over. So what they ended up doing was selling, or I guess it's technically selling. It's not a license, but they sold proprietary technology and it was like 20 engineers for 10 of the press and seal and the force flex stuff to Clorox for 10% of the entire Clorox portfolio. And it was like, I was reading that, I'm like, well, that's crazy. It was an awesome decision. But just from a strategic standpoint, like we see in wrestling, where it's like, I could go head to head to this person where maybe they're really good at takedowns, or maybe they got a really nasty collar tie or whatever it is. You got to figure out a way, like, am I going to be stubborn? Am I going to risk it just based on ego, or am I going to make this work in the broader sense and figure out a better angle to come at it? That was a really cool, like, geeking out thing on business strategy that I uncovered recently. But yeah, the Marvel stuff is killer. They got a lot of cool stuff coming out. The Thunderbolt movie was awesome. The Sentry I'm really interested in. I was a little hesitant, but when I started seeing him turn people into shadows, it was nuts.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a really really great movie. So hopefully, yeah, they can, ride off of the momentum of the new Captain America movie, which I do suggest. Like, if anyone listens to this, go check it out. Really great movie. I think honestly, yeah, they throw in a lot of different things, but I think overall, I think from what they were talking about the movie, they had a lot of like rewrites and even changing the name of the title. Because I think they had it originally like Captain America: New World Order. They changed it, so like a lot of things like that. But I mean, I think overall, I mean, that is a great watch. I mean, I know my wife says she'll watch it again. Cool. And there's a lot of, and she's really particular about her movies. But she said, yeah, that's one that she would watch again. So,
cool. Have you caught the the new Spider-Man on Disney Plus?
No, not yet. I hadn't caught that one yet.
Check it out. It's a cool spin. I'm really digging where they're taking it. It's unlike any other Spider-Man take I've seen. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
animation takes a little getting used to, but it's pretty dope.
Yeah. I
Definitely
know the
worth checking
last
out.
cartoon I've watched, well, I saw the X-Men 97, the season 2 series. And I was
Yeah,
like,
that's
that I have that now in my top 5 cartoons of of all. I'm
hell yeah.
like, this is amazing. I was like, this
Yeah,
is I mean, it was something else. But yeah, that's something too. I would definitely suggest people watches that X-Men, 97 season 2. I mean, it melds perfectly with that, with the season 1.
yeah,
So I know
yeah. It
watching
definitely does.
that automatically took me back to my to my childhood. I remember,
Saturday mornings on the
Saturday
box.
mornings I would check out X-Men, and then like me and my brother, we'd always go to back home back in Cleveland, Tennessee. We would always I'd have my little bowl of cereal, watch X-Men, and then like we'd go to like the community center to go, like go play basketball and stuff like that on
Oh
Saturday
yeah,
mornings. But I was like, man, those were some good times. Good times.
yeah. So if you had to choose one, if you had to choose the old X-Men cartoon and the old Spider-Man cartoon, which one goes in?
Oh, that Spider-Man cartoon was really good. I'm still gonna go with X-Men. I think
Yeah,
that one hit hard for me. That was, and even the golly, yeah, that Spider-Man one was good too. I mean, I watched both of them, but I would have to pick X-Men over that one. Um, yeah, that'd be my pick. Both of them were really good.
yeah, yeah. They were good, but I'm with you on that. I'm with you on the X-Men, 100%. Speaking of Disney Plus, uh, it was only recently, but I guess Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN, or like a trifecta of a package or whatever. They just recently put on sports on Disney Plus from ESPN, and they got wrestling, like college wrestling, like right front and center. I had my boys watching it. They were top and bottom positions in the middle of the living room. They were just like geeking out and watching it. Iowa, everybody. It's really cool, and it the podcast I was listening to earlier today that you had uh, with Derek Caldwell, and him building up the CWA program and trying to overcome these challenges of, shading the stigma that wrestling is carrying from professional wrestling, trying to create that distinction between the two sports and build like an authentic following of traditional folk style wrestling is something that we're also seeing in the brand space where you have conversations with business leaders about brand development and they're thinking logo, colors, typography, nothing that is going to influence on a fundamental business level. And you see that in the brand community now where they're trying to figure out a way to approach those conversations without even bringing up the word brand because it's carried so much disconnected weight that it's just a huge disservice to what the value of the offerings actually are.
Oh
So I
yeah,
thought that
yeah,
was an
definitely,
interesting
definitely
parallel.
agree on that. Yeah, just even I think people don't realize, and I think that's something that's always sort of, maybe for another episode, who knows? But when when you have people looking for, even businesses, corporations, they're like, hey, we know we need a fresh new look, or we need, or they feel like, hey, if we redesign this logo, this is going to change the perception
It's
of our
like,
audiences, and that's not necessarily the case. I mean, and I think people need to understand that, as like I get so many requests. A lot of them I'm a big frank, like a lot of them I just ignore, but I'll get requests for like, you sometimes you see it on Facebook, you're like, hey, hey, I'm looking for a simple logo, or something like that. And I'm like, I used to, when I first started, I'd be like, it would pique my interest. I'm like, okay, let me reach out to them.
yeah,
And now I don't even look at that. I was like, look,
yeah,
there's people that that come to me because I am pretty much like a creative partner or a resource, and I'm helping
yeah.
them to create a brand presence, and connect audiences in different ways, and share it, and really just tell their story. Um, Me doing a simple logo and feeling like, okay, you do this and this is supposed to raise revenue for you, that no, you're
Yeah,
you're very mistaken on that. It's like you need a strategy. You need you need, marketing, you need some kind of, visual storytelling that you can connect audiences with. And I mean, I think that's what you're doing. And it's just one of those where like, yeah, I was like, I'm not even, I'm just gonna ignore that. I was like, I don't
Yeah.
even I
The
was like, that's
it's
not gonna help at all. There's a lot of little things aside from you redesigning the logo. Like that's, it's just a basic,
yeah,
that's a basic thing.
there's bigger things on the table. It's like, what are you trying to do with the logo? What's the point? Why do you think you need to refresh it, or why do you think you need a new one? Why do you think you need a new website? Usually it's like it's a deeper problem. That is whether you don't have a good messaging set up for your ideal audience, you don't have a strong positioning in the market. Like we were talking about earlier, like positioning is everything. You can go head to head, you can burn a lot of wasted energy trying to force something through where you can find a distinctive angle that's going to optimize your position, optimize your leverage, optimize how much energy expenditure you actually need to utilize to get where you want to go. But yeah, it's usually a bigger issue. There's a platform I've been using recently, the last couple of years, called Catch a Fire. So I know you're big into the volunteer space. Are you familiar with Catch a Fire at all?
No, I hadn't heard that.
So it's basically all nonprofit. So there's no pay in it at all, but it's a really interesting platform where they have a host of different services. It could be graphic design, logo design, strategy, marketing, positioning, accounting, anything. You set up an interview, you talk to the team, you get their brief, you see what they want to do. And then if you want to help, you can. It's usually they have a time frame they're looking at. You have your time frame. There's an understanding and agreement on what the services would cost, period. And then so there's an understanding of the value exchange that's going to be in play. But if you're looking to contribute, like I did one for the advanced early education collaborative. And it's basically this set of stakeholders that come together from whether it be providing clothing, transport assistance, financial assistance, this, that, and the other thing for um, women in the Washington D.C. area who might be at a disadvantage for whatever certain conditions, and depending on what their needs are, as they pursue a higher level of education to utilize in the education field. These groups of people come together to give resources where they can to help them, achieve that success. So they were looking for a logo a couple of years ago, and I was able to come in with the logo and the visual identity, but it grew into helping to educate the team in terms of positioning, messaging, who they're really trying to talk to, and making the most out of the efforts they're placing in. So, it's a typical under promise, over deliver, but the takeaway is seeing like the value that can give at no, it's just doing a good thing. I think you really get a kick out of that platform. I'll shoot you a message with it so you can check it out. Enjoy it at your own leisure. Whatever you want to do, you want to do it, do it. If not, there's no commitment. They'll have people reach out to you too. But it's pretty cool platform when you want to just sharpen some edges or maybe try out some new services without necessarily having to charge for it. You're testing waters on different approaches.
Okay,
I think we're
yeah,
big.
yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
Um, also just your wrestling background, Beat the Streets. You familiar with them at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome stuff that they got going on. They got big stuff coming up with the Olympics in 2028 in LA. And maybe some of that momentum can work into that CWA platform that Derek is working on.
Yeah, 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 I think he's got, yeah, I think he really has a cool thing. And talking with him, and he was, yeah, he talked, he was actually pulling a lot of stuff from like, because he loves hockey, so he was like
Yeah.
pulling things from what he what he saw with hockey. And so yeah, I think it can definitely turn into a really good product. Obviously, you need corporate sponsors and things like that, especially
Yes.
to stretch it out and build new teams. And um but yeah, I mean, I applaud anyone for starting something like that, and trying to market the sport of wrestling. Yeah, I get messages all the time. As you get the same thing. Like, hey, how do we market wrestling better, or how do we grow the sport? And sometimes it's like thinking outside the box. And like I think for a lot of people, especially within the wrestling community, we can be traditionalists for the most part, Not everyone, but a large percentage, and being open to sort of seeing what other sports or other people organizations are doing,
Yeah, adjacent
and
markets.
yeah, and say like, well, let's how can we pull those ideals or concepts into the context of wrestling? Like, how do we make that happen?
100%.
So
I think the mixed martial arts avenue is big. I think a big boost with what the value of wrestling is. Because it's one of those things. I think they call it the four-man sport. You don't need anything, just need you, and some heart and some grit, and you're good to go. Um, but yeah, that showcasing the value of takedown and conditioning, control, and then with the build of both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and those grappling martial arts now are really giving credence to like, this ancient combat style that's always been there. Not necessarily always looking for the limelight, but it's in the Olympics, been there for thousands of years. Like it's not going anywhere. But to see that get it due will be a really cool thing to see. And now that there's like serious momentum from a few different platforms, whether it be like Flow Wrestling or anything like that, where it's like you got some powerhouses out there now, like Rufus, like really cool initiatives getting taken on, and then people are drinking the Kool-Aid.
yeah, yeah.
And,
Um, it was something else I was going to ask you. It'll definitely it's slipped my mind. It'll come. It may come back to me. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to talk about. Just going back, circling back around. I know right now, the state tournaments going on for a lot of people. I know personally for me, I've been slammed with requests for state tournament graphics and T-shirts and stuff. So it's been a little not really a nightmare, but it's been really a crazy week
yeah,
getting singlets and T-shirt designs and everything else completed. But there's been a big discussion on is it state or states, and I've heard both. And what do you how do y'all
good
say
question,
the
man.
state?
It was always a New York State wrestling tournament, but you're going to states was always what got said. Now there might be a little more credence to it. I don't know about out in California, but in New York, we have two divisions. You got D1 and D2. So there's almost like two different portions of the state tournament. So technically, maybe it could be states, but yeah, I've never actually thought of that linguistic
Yeah,
conundrum that the state
yeah, I
tournament
know.
is.
Coming from Tennessee, we always call it the state tournament.
Yeah,
Now, I mean, obviously they have private and public. They got two divisions. They got girls and stuff like that. So, but we always call it the state tournament. Out California, it's the state tournament. It's one division combined, which is crazy because I just getting used to a lot of California wrestling out here and getting to know like some of the teams. It's like it's ridiculous the amount of teams that's in that tournament, all these different divisions, and it's one champ, and it's wild.
crazy.
So yeah, that's it. Yeah, they call that state tournament. But yeah, I've heard. I guess like more on the East Coast, like people will say states. I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't like that didn't make sense. But
never actually thought about it.
yeah.
Asking bothered me. Thanks.
I just want to get your input because I guess it was a big discussion on Instagram about that. Like if it was state or states, and you
Yep.
had people say, they had their they had their comments, but I always found that interesting.
Yep.
Wrestling's always been a weird little sport. It's sort of funny because it's like even now like I think I always mess with my son because he plays basketball and everything, but I'll look in the NBA and you'll see guys with their socks tucked in their sweatpants and warm up stuff and you know
You know where that
making
comes
it
from.
cool. I'm like, Russell's been doing that for.
Yeah. Where were
I'm
you in
like,
the
they've been doing
80s?
that for years. I mean, it's like so it's like it's nothing new. I mean, even wearing the having the hoodies and
Yep.
I was like we've been doing all that. So yeah, I do see people now, making it fashionable or I know with wrestling, everyone's got their own little fashion take. When they go coming to practice, sometimes they got I've seen people now, going sort of like the freestyle route where they'll be training with polo zone. I guess freestyle does that a lot. They'll have polo zone training, and which I mean,
Okay.
it's sort of weird at first, but I was like, I guess you can make it work.
Yeah. That's like the old what's it, Vision Quest, right? The coach got
Yeah,
the polo under the singlet.
yeah.
That's awesome.
I was like, that's nice little fashion there. I like that. I like that.
They didn't
They
bring
they
it
should
back.
have a fashion show one day, like some kind of wrestling based fashion show, and everyone comes out with their favorite like wrestling drip. Like, what do they come in like with their in the practice room or warm ups? Like it should be like some big some weird fashion show. That'd be cool to see.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, especially like a whatever, institutional level where it's like all the different athletes
Yeah.
for athletics, and how it changes between sport. But yeah, dude, that's awesome stuff.
Sort of circling back around. I know. So we talked about this a little bit. I saw the poster design you put out. I believe for your team.
Yep. One of
So
them, yeah.
that was really cool. I know. What programs do you normally use? I know people ask me all the time, like, hey, what programs are you using whenever I'm creating,
When I'm
poster
working,
designs
like
or
making a poster, it all starts pencil and paper. That's
yeah.
hands down. I got thumbnails like crazy. That's going to be one of the things I'll be putting up, like where all these things actually start from. Is nothing good what it looks like, but it's primarily Photoshop for photo editing. I got a Nikon camera I use for photography, and then it's been Illustrator, and then actually this year I experimented with AI and image generation and working on prompts and giving it, baseline images that I've created to work from and kind of explore that territory. I was really happy with the results. If you're talking about turnaround time, like it's crazy. But yeah, Photoshop and that the artist I sent you a few months back, Aaron Blaze, his digital painting style, that's bar none what I use all the time. So anything from soup to nuts, or just adding highlights, or adding, with wrapping and with lights, this and that. Like it's all super guided. But yeah, Photoshop primarily, Illustrator for copy and whatnot. Um, Files get picked up. I mean, all the posters I work at, they're at scale, 24 by 36. So it's a huge image. Definitely bogs down the computer, saving like a nail biter, especially when you work on a computer that's 10 years old. Um, but it's a lot of fun. The kids get a kick out of it. It's a valuable touch point for not just the district, the program, but also local communities. They get an opportunity to sponsor and showcase, their stuff on the poster. It's usually timing wise for deliverables set up to showcase and premiere at their home tournament. So they'll print out an even bigger one, like a 4x6 print, right in the front entryway. Teams there, everybody's walking for lanes, and this and that. It all works out really well. And the kids each get a copy. I think it's like an 11 17 or maybe even the 24 by 36, depending. Take home as a keepsake. And then you get it's one of the incentives to drive up the enrollment for the sport. You're on that poster. You get one at the end, and you got something to look back on for the next rest of your life as long as you take care of it.
Yeah, that's
So,
cool.
it's a lot of fun. It's tricky though because it can very easily grow into um, pretty complicated things. I see what you're doing with the senior posters where you can really get a chance to highlight them. You get different ways to showcase the different levels of that level investment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a lot of fun. Actually, this year was interesting because the guy I used to coach with has been running the program for forever, since '07. So this was his first year not running it and actually going to a different district. And one of our wrestlers actually ended up coming to the ranks and taking over the program. So that was a big premise with the challenges of the program basis year was change of hands. And not just like a light change of hands, like heavy shift in presence. Where, the guy I talked to about in the last conversation with, he's presence. And that dude's in a room, it. So not having that there was going to be this challenge that, hey, the kids are going to have, districts are going to have, parents are going to have. And, how to really drive home that it's the same thing. It's just a different set of hands guiding it. So the core doesn't change. And that's where, with the post I put up today, I talked about the law of thermodynamics and how energy never is created or, you know, broken down. It just changes. Same thing. So that was like that guiding light for the program this year, was to do that.
Yeah, I like that. That's
So
that's
that's
a
what we
good
kind
thing.
of,
I like that.
yeah, it's pretty cool. And that's one of those things where MSP like you gotta know how to talk to people, how to drive that aspirational identity, how to get them rallying behind point, whether it's employer branding internally and building a team, you know, building a place where people want to work and giving them a reason to stay, or getting people, to build a community, support your brand, build that tribe. Um, getting to utilize that in athletics period is critical for a sport like wrestling, where it can really use help. Like I'm always happy to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some people don't realize like even even like I said, I tend to work with wrestling more than anything else, but I think a lot of the teams, they're trying to develop their programs and culture, and they have a hard time like sort of figuring out the direction. And I think it just comes back to like, okay, what is your identity? Like what's the team culture? Like if you have any kind of like mantras or anything else like that is the underlying foundation of like everything that you do. It could be from obviously competition, that's pretty much the byproduct, but like, hey, how are the practices ran, like what are they doing with community
Yeah,
service, how are they doing in school, all that stuff plays a part. What's the team personality,
yeah,
so I think a lot of coaches feel like I'm just coaching, and obviously, teams want to win, but at the same time too, you have to have some kind of guiding principle
yep,
underneath that it's going to help you out, because like I said, you're not obviously, yeah, you got some of those teams that's going to be consistent every year in and year out, but even then, every great program started from somewhere. You just didn't start off just great and
no,
you go from that.
no,
Like
yeah,
everyone started from somewhere. So I know, just even with my high school team, they're gunning for a eighth straight state title back in
mhm,
Tennessee, but they did a really good job sort of figuring out like what their culture and identity is, and branding everything around that,
yeah,
from social media to obviously billboards and posters and shirts and merchandise.
yep,
Like they have a identity of who they are, and that's, I said, they've been really consistent putting that out. Honestly, coming out, creating that culture, and building a great product and building great athletes. That's just a part of it. But yeah, you always notice. I always tend to watch, even on social media. I'll look at like some of these big programs, like what they're doing, like what's you can tell like right off the bat. If I see like a Bishop McCord, or if I see out here Poway, or even with back in Tennessee with Cleveland, like right off the bat like what they're about.
yeah,
So it's always amazing, amazing to see.
yeah. No, it definitely takes a lot of effort. We talked about it last time about like the thankless hours, where it's just making sure kids are going to practice, they're getting up early, they're doing their road work, they're doing this, doing that. Staffing meetings, seating meetings, all that kind of stuff that is behind the scenes. Um, but yeah, building that program, that was one of the things that I had the girls across team from the same school contact me last year. Like, hey, we're building the program again. It got canceled. We want to bring it back up. We really want to build this out and make it something just like one of the moms who was associated with it, her son wrestled. So she knew the program. She knew PJ Nation. She knew the mentality and the persona and the vibe that it gave off, and the presence that it had, not just in the district, but in the county. And where you walk into a room, it's like, okay, it's go time. So they wanted to build that up. We ended up, building up. I had discovery and strategy meetings with the founding parents for the program. We worked over a name, which you guys talked about with Derek. the challenges with that, which we could certainly go into that in different podcasts. But we came up with the name Legion, where they wanted something close to nation. You can't do the same thing, but you want to create that distinctive identity, a bit of cohesion. So we came up with the Girls Lacrosse Legion, and it's I'll be putting stuff up online, but it's basically a phoenix with the head of a lacrosse stick on the chest at the heart. And it's about that resurgence, that rebirth, and that power that is fueling those efforts. So it really it hit home. It went well. I should be working with them again this coming spring, and that name stuff, it makes a big difference. I think Glory Kickboxing did a really good job with their naming convention, because it's not wrestling. Like, you got all those things would kind of shake with the wrestling stigma of professional wrestling. But like Glory Kickboxing goes to that aspirational identity, the glory, that emotional connection to the sport, where you get that win. There's that transcendence that you're trying to achieve. That's the name that works. It's like, what is that? And then plus the marketing, you got huge heavy investors that certainly help. But the approach to the name, the fact that it was not trademarked yet, which is crazy, because as of 2018, I think the statistic was, out of the 1,000 most common used single word English business names, 80 some odd % of them were trademarked.
Oh, wow.
It's almost 10 years ago, so you can imagine how slim that pool is now. But it's a big struggle, but it's a lot of cool stuff. If you hit it right, it's an awesome thing to have in your pocket.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. Hey man, I gotta head out. I got a hard stop. I gotta respect, but it's awesome talking. I'm really hoping we can do it again, because we're 2 for 2 right now. We can just keep going.
Yeah, no, I might just
think the
have
out of bounds,
one of the regular rotating co-hosts. I might just bring you on.
hit me up, man. I'm free. I think the out of bounds thing, I think, is awesome. I say, if you can grow that to its own thing, certainly keep it. But if not, I think it's a really cool avenue to explore that you have going on.
Yeah, yeah. And the shirt, is that an X-Men shirt?
You know it.
Yeah, I know it right off the front. I saw it. I was like, oh, that's X-Men. That's X-Men.
Yeah. That was one of those things that when Target started putting those out, the old school things. Again, you always wanted the kid to be never got.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of kids starting to come out with like, they'll start wearing a lot of the old 90s stuff. And I was like, do you know these characters? Like, those,
The meme is like, what, name one song from that band.
yeah, I got one of the kids in one of my wrestling practices, and like, they had golly, I think they had wow, it might have been it was like an old 90s. It was something either animated or comic book related, and they didn't know anything about the characters. They thought it was a cool shirt. I was like, give me 30 push-ups. It's like, you're not even and like, take the shirt off.
Go takedowns. Put it on.
All right. Well, hey, it was good talking to you. Good talking to you as always.
Likewise,
if you get a chance, please check out Ian. He is at the Truth Quarry on Instagram, and you're on Facebook too, right?
I'm not on Facebook yet, and
Okay.
that's one of the things I got to take on. But being on LinkedIn, getting back on Instagram, and actually, I just started a Substack called Saturday Scramble. It's gonna be a monthly blog about business brand insights through the lens of combat sports.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, I'll hit you up. I'll send you some info. I think you can get a huge kick out of the platform.
Yeah, I keep hearing about Substack. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. You'll love it.
All right, good deal. Well, hey,
All right,
this
man.
is another episode. This would be, I guess this would be episode 4. So we got another one sort of coming out before this one, but this will be re-released on the podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, and then this will be on my YouTube page as well at quantallangford. So if you get a chance, please check him out with the Truth Quarry on Instagram. So please check it out. If anyone's interested in any kind of brand strategy, visual identity for your organization, company, or team, please consider checking him out. Check out what he's doing some really cool work. So I just want to give a quick shout out to him. But
Appreciate that.
This is Out of Bounds series with the Creative Brew.
Hey, man, keep doing what you're doing. Thanks for having me.
All I know is hard work, really nothing else. I resort to smoking weed, yo, cause nothing helps. Called the homie up, told him loot to sample up. We gotta come together now, cause I had enough. The time is now, there'll never be another one. It's a second lap.